left Pimba, I was originally heading towards Kubapidi, but I decided to change my plans and take a detour up through Woomera to Roxby Downs and then on to Andamooka. I'm so glad I did. And I was pleasantly surprised to find the road tarred all the way through to Andamooka. So that was a real bonus. I also found a really good free camp outside of Roxby Downs where I set up base for a week. So yeah, it was a good opportunity to explore a little bit of the area. Let's start the detour in Woomera. The first thing I learnt when I got to Woomera is that Woomera is not a town, it is an RAAF base. I always thought it was a town with an RAAF base. The first point of interest you get to when you arrive in Woomera is Rocket Park, and it's an amazing set of displays. It's all rockets and rocket launchers and planes, and there's even a little scrapyard down the back where they picked up all the scrap metal in the desert from one of the launches that they had. So that was really interesting to see. I found the museum at the Heritage Centre very interesting. I learnt a lot of information that I didn't know, that, for instance, that Australia didn't just launch rockets for America and England, we also had our own rockets that we were experimenting with. There's so much more to see in the museum. This is just a very, very small sample of it. I like to look through cemeteries when I go into towns because it gives you some of the history of a time gone by. But I've got to say, Woomera Cemetery is one of the saddest I have been into. Almost a third of the graves here belong to babies and toddlers. It's just so sad. But also out at the cemetery is the Len Bedell Monument. You can read more about Len at the Heritage Centre. Time to head off to my next stop. Well, hello, Roxby Downs. You are a surprise. I was expecting this, I don't know, little mining town, shabby sort of thing, and it's not. It's very modern, it's very clean and uniform. All the houses are looked after. The town square is just fantastic. It has everything there for the RVs. It's got a dump point, it's got free camps, it's got a caravan park, it's got a huge Woolworths, and it's even got Subway. So I was able to have Subway for lunch. So yeah, very, very surprised by Roxby Downs, and yeah, what a great little town. This mural that runs right along the side of a building opposite the shopping centre really highlights all the different aspects of the town, from the mining to the animals, and the fact that it's all done in the colours of the outback is just spectacular. Well, that's all there is in Roxby Downs, so off I go again. Driving into Andamooka, the first thing I notice is how ugly it is. Sorry, but it just is. And I don't mean it's dirty, it's certainly not. But it's just, I don't know, I guess because there's old machinery and cars and stuff in front yards, and houses are made out of whatever seemed to be laying around at the time. But having said that, this town is an absolute hidden gem. Wait till I take you for a tour of what's here. This house was one of the first to be built on the Andamooka opal field. It was built by Mr. Frank Albertoni in 1931, and the structure hasn't changed since the time of its construction. This dugout is called Ward's Dugout, and it was built by George Mollicher for Bob Cusrow in 1941. They were both miners, and the dwelling shows evidence of its rough make-do origins. They just needed a roof over their head pretty much that would keep them cool in the summer months and dry in the rainy season. So they're pretty rough, these dugouts, but I tell you what, I really hope that they found opal after the hard life that they lived looking for it. This dugout is called Absalon's house, and it was built by Andy Absalon, who is the father of outback artist Jack Absalon. He was one of the pioneers of the Andamooka opal fields and proprietor of the first general store on the field. He built this house in 1942. Andy lived in this semi-dugout for 8 years, and after he left, Mr. and Mrs. Perry took it over and turned it into Mrs. Perry's kitchen for a while. The dugout had a succession of owners up until the 60s, when it was just left and it started to go into disrepair. This dugout is known as Mrs. Perry's kitchen. This also has a bit of a history. The first dwelling on the site was built by Ernie Sherman, an opal buyer, in 1934. Then when it fell into disrepair, it was demolished in 1951, and in its place, Mr. Frank Albertoni and Mrs. May Perry built a dugout which she used as her kitchen. So because Frank had helped her build her kitchen, she gifted Frank the Absalon dugout because she now had control over that. As you drive into Andamooka, on the left, you'll see the old machinery display. There's old trucks and tractors and bulldozers and equipment, and it's really interesting. I enjoy those sorts of things, so I found it really interesting, and I saw machines there that I haven't seen before, so that was also a bonus. So, final words, is Andamooka worth a visit? Definitely. It may be dry and dusty and, in my opinion, ugly, but boy, it's got some great history here and it's well worth seeing. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you would subscribe, like, and/or comment. Until next time, happy travels.